Hi guys! Hello everyone and welcome back to another planty video. So today I am coming to you from my new house. As some of you may already know, I just moved house. So I thought I would give you all some tips and tricks on how to move with plants, because it's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you have quite a few. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything that I'm telling you. Moving is hard as it is, let alone when you've got loads of plants and you're quite precious about them. It can be really hard to move with them, and as much as you will plan, it won't ever go to plan. I have moved many times now with plants. It's probably coming up to the 4th time now, maybe. This would probably have been the 4th time moving with plants over the last few years. And I have got around 90, 100 plants, just to give you all a gauge if you don't watch my channel already. So I've got quite a few, and they range to very small ones, propagations, to cactuses that are as tall as me, and pots that are this big. So I have got a whole range of plants, and I thought I'd go through with you the different methods I use for each kind of plant and each kind of pot, because it will vary how you pack them depending on what plant it is. So I'm going to start at the very beginning. I always think about watering. So you've got to think about watering purely because when you're packing your plants, if you've got cardboard boxes, you don't want your plants to be dripping out water everywhere. The boxes will get soggy and break. That's one issue. The other issue is if you leave it too late, if you water them the day before you move, your box is going to be very heavy, especially if you've got really big plants. I've got a very big Monstera, and the pot is like this big, and you have to hold it like this. Once I've watered it, I can barely carry it. I can literally manage to get it from where it sits now to outside and then back in again. So with plants like this, you've got to kind of time your watering right. I think I did a fairly good job at gauging. I did mine 7 to 5 days before. Some of them were very, very dry when I got here. But as I said, nothing goes to plan. I was planning on moving my plants in and being able to water them straight away. A lot more stuff went on. We had floors being fitted, so plants were in boxes for days and days after, and then even when I had put them like on the shelf, they were there for like a day or two without being watered. So they went about 4 days, 5 days longer without water than I anticipated. So your plants that take longer to dry out, if you've got ones in really big pots, I would say even 2 weeks before was a good gauge for me. My huge pot I've got with my Monstera in it, I did 2 weeks before moving, and that was at the point of watering about a week after, or probably about 4 or 5 days after I moved. So I'd say that was a good gauge for that kind of plant. If it's a plant in a really small pot, maybe do it 4 days before you move, 3-4 days, and just gauge with your plants which ones take longer to dry out. Water them at the beginning of the week. If it's a plant that dries out really quickly, obviously do it closer to moving. But this is one thing you've really got to think about, because you don't want your boxes to be too heavy. You also don't want to stress your plants out too much with leaving them to dry out too much. So it all depends on your plants, your conditions, and you've got to gauge whether you will be able to water those plants as soon as you move in or not. Okay, so with packing your plants up, I have quite a few methods of which plants get transported in different ways. In pots like this, so the more smaller, compact plants, I put these into a box. It can be a shallow box or a taller box, it's whatever you've got, but pack them all really tightly in that box. If there's any gaps that leave pots moving around, bashing against each other, stuff sink in there, a tea towel, some kitchen roll, an odd bit and bob that needs packing still, put something in there so none of your pots are moving around in your boxes. This minimises the damage on your plants as much as you can, because you want to try and make sure that your plants aren't moving around too much. If they're in a car or in a van surrounded by loads of other boxes, if you've got plants moving around and bashing around inside of another box, they're going to end up damaging each other. So I would say just try and keep them as tightly packed as you can. I'd also say if you know you're not going to be able to take those plants out of their boxes as soon as you get into your house, consider getting yourself some clear plastic tubs. I found these so helpful. I had quite a few boxes that I transported to the new house and I could kind of unpack them within a day. So they were fine in cardboard boxes, but I boxed up a load of plants and I wasn't able to get back to the old house for about 3 days. And I left the ones that are in plastic boxes. This is because the sunlight can still get in on the plants that are in cardboard boxes. Obviously the light can't get to them, so that's also going to be a shock for your plant. It doesn't need to be all your boxes need to be plastic clear tubs, just maybe a few that you know, if you're not going to be able to take all your plants in one go, if someone's still going to be over at your old house for a few more days on their own in a box, consider putting those in some plastic tubs. And with your vining plants, as you can see, I have got a very, very long Marble Queen here, and I've got multiple others that are really long vining plants. I found those quite difficult. The ones that are not as long, I find is best to get it from the bottom and wrap all of your vine on the top of your planter, pop it in the box. I found that best. You will have to go and untangle them when you get to your new home, but it's best for minimal damage. With my Marble Queen here, this was too big to do that. It wouldn't all fit on the top of the pot. So what I did with this one, I transported it in the car. The car was packed full of stuff. I found a stable area that I could kind of put the pot into so it wouldn't be moving around, and then I led the whole of the plant over the back seats of the car and made sure it was all flat. And then when I got to the house here, I took it out and brought it straight up and put it straight on this shelf to make sure that it was minimal damage, and that worked really well for me. If you've got lots like that, you can maybe all put them in a line and put them all along and then take them out one by one when you get to your new house. With your taller plants and say your plants on planks, I have got quite a few and they're not the most stable things in the world. And how I overcame this issue was giving them taller boxes. So I put these in taller boxes and I taped the top of the wood onto the outside of the pot so that plank isn't doing this inside of your pot. If they're moving around inside your box during travel, it's very likely that either that plank is just going to dislodge from the soil completely, or you might snap a stem if it's put on there quite tightly. It just minimises the movement of those plants and also stops them bashing into each other during moving. And really, really tall plants, especially cacti, I have got a few. This guy here, I had some really tall boxes and I put that in its own box that was quite tight. It would only fit that one plant in. Obviously cactus, euphorbia, all of those kind of plants are spiky. You don't want them in with your foliage plants because they might rip holes in the foliage and all that kind of stuff, which you really don't want. And last but not least, your really big plants that won't fit in boxes, what do you do with them? I was really concerned about this. I have got a really tall golden pothos on a moss pole, and it's taller than me, and obviously that's not going to fit in a box. It wouldn't fit in the car. I've also got cactus that's the same height as me. Obviously that's not going to fit in a box or the car. Also, my wide plants, obviously I've got 2 monsteras that are really big. They wouldn't fit in the car or a box. I was moving with a van and a car, so what I did with these plants, my large monsteras that are in, very sturdy, they're not going to be like flying around. I left a gap at the back of the van, kind of deep enough that I could put some plants. Make sure all your boxes are stable and they're not going to be moving around, flying back on those plants, but put those right at the back, and then you can take those out as soon as you get to the house. You can take them out. All I did was take them out and put them in my back garden in a shaded area, and then brought them in later on once I had the opportunity and moved all the furniture in. My really tall plants, so my golden pothos and also my cactus, I put these on the walls of the van and then used duct tape to tape them to the side of the van at the top and middle and near the bottom. So again, these aren't going to be moving around. They're not going to be flying and falling over, and this really worked for me. I got to the other side and I was quite dubious. I've done this before and it worked then, but again I was still worried this time, and I got there and they were perfectly fine. There was not a scratch on them, so I'd really recommend this method. It was really helpful for me. Okay, and then what to do when you have packed all of your boxes, taken them over to wherever you're moving to. What do you do with them then? As I said, nothing ever goes to plan. I always have a vision in my head that I'm going to get to the new place and I'm going to be able to like take them all out their boxes, put them all up on their shelves and give them all water, and like spend like 3 hours making sure they're okay and all watered and happy. That never happens. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's never happened for me. I aim to do it and it just doesn't work out that way. It's just the nature of moving. But what I did do was I left them in the boxes until the end of the day. We had people fitting flooring, tiles, carpets. We were all coming in and out as well with all of the furniture from the van. So I left these in boxes, and some of them were left again for a few days in those boxes. But if I could take any out and tuck them into a corner at the end of the day, I was doing that. Once you can get around to watering them, I again took a few days to be able to get around to it. Don't stress too much. If you have a spare 5 minutes at the end of the day and you don't have time to unpack them, but you're worried about the ones that do get really thirsty, you could even just quickly check into the soil, go around your boxes, double check that they are all okay. If any of them need watering, just quickly pop some water in there. It's not going to hurt them for a couple of days, just to give yourself some peace of mind. I did that with a couple of mine because I knew they were very fussy with their water, and if they dry out too much there will be loads of leaves dropping. So I did do that with a few of my plants, and then when I got around to it I took them out of the boxes. What I have done is, once I've taken them out of their boxes, I've put them in a place and left them there to kind of acclimate. This is a whole new environment for your plants. They've just gone through moving and being in boxes for days and they're thirsty. They're going to be stressed out enough as it is. So I avoid faffing with them too much. I took them out of their boxes. As I was taking them out, checking they needed water, watering them and putting them like on the plant shelf or in the corner of the room somewhere, and I have just left them for a few days and I've just not touched them. I know that they're all happy because they've been watered, But I'm just trying to let them acclimate to their new environment before I start faffing around with them too much and up-potting them and all that kind of stuff. I would just really recommend leaving them for a few days, if not like a week. If you do see any casualties, I know from going around and watering some of mine in here, you'll see in next week's video, one of them had root rot. So things like that, take them out of the pot, treat them, try and propagate them, because if you don't, obviously they are going to die and you don't want that. But if it's not necessary, don't do it. Okay, and to finish up, I just wanted to say that it's fine to have damage on some plants. I do have a few casualties. Obviously I've got one with root rot. I have snapped a few leaves off. There are some scratches on leaves and all that kind of stuff, but as long as you try your best to make sure that they are all stable and packed well, that's all you can do. But I think I'm going to wrap this video up. It was just a few little kind of pointers and little suggestions of how I've moved plants. I thought I would quickly get this video out the way while all of that was fresh in my mind. I know I've had a few people messaging me asking for tips on how to move their plants. Please comment down below if any of you have any other tips and tricks that I have not mentioned. It'd be really helpful for me and anybody watching this if they are trying to work out how to move with all their plants. Help each other out, that's what we're here for. It's always a great community for that. Like if you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more planty content from me. As I said, I've recently moved, so there will be lots of plant decor content and stuff like that. And follow my planty Instagram if you want to see more from me. I'm on my stories a lot over there and posting more regular updates on my plants. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you next week for another planty video. Bye guys.